My family betrayed me, so I got revenge in the best way possible. I never thought my life would turn into something out of a movie script, but here I am. I'm writing this not because I'm proud, but because I want to finally put this entire saga into words. Maybe some of you will think I went too far, maybe some of you will think I did exactly what needed to be done. Either way, it's my story. My name isn't important, but let's just say I'm in my early 30s now. When I was in my early 20s, I had one dream: to build something of my own. I didn't come from money, I didn't have rich uncles to fund me. What I had was a stubborn will, long nights with little sleep, and a vision that one day I could run a company that actually mattered. The beginning. The company started in my bedroom, literally. I had an old laptop with a half-broken keyboard, a $50 desk I bought secondhand, and a brain full of ideas. I worked 2 jobs to keep myself afloat while putting every spare dollar into my project. I coded, designed, cold-emailed clients, and when I finally landed my first small contract, I almost cried. It was $800, not life-changing, but to me, it was proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that I could make this real. My parents, at first, were supportive in that distant, good for you, kind of way. They didn't really understand what I was doing, but they were proud I wasn't wasting my life. My younger sister, though, let's call her Emily. Emily was 3 years younger than me, and she had always been the golden child. Beautiful, charming, everyone loved her. Where I was the quiet nerd, she was the star. My parents adored her, gave her everything, while I was the one who was told, "You'll figure it out." For a while, it didn't matter. I didn't need attention, I needed results. And slowly, results came. By the time I was 25, I had registered my company officially. I hired my first employee, then another. Contracts grew from $800 to $8,000, then $80,000. I still remember the day I crossed my first $1 million in revenue. I was exhausted, underpaid compared to what I could have earned working corporate, but it was mine. The shift. Here's where things started to twist. My parents suddenly took a much keener interest in my little business. They invited me to family dinners just to ask how much money I was making. My dad would brag to his friends, "My son runs his own company, you know." Emily, on the other hand, was drifting. She had tried college, dropped out after a year. Tried modeling, didn't work out. Tried a few jobs, quit within months. She was still living at home, spending my parents' money, and honestly, I didn't care. I was too busy grinding. Then one night, during dinner, my mom said something that would change everything. "You know, Emily has such a good sense for people and style. She could really help you with your company." I almost choked on my food. Emily? A partner? She had never worked a day in the business. She had no idea what we even did beyond vague guesses. I laughed it off, but my mom pressed. "I'm serious. You've been doing this alone too long. Family should be involved. Imagine building this together." I brushed it aside, but over the next few months, the pressure grew. Emily started visiting my office. At first it was casual, just to see what you do. Then she started giving opinions. "This office is too boring. You should make it more modern." Or, "Your website looks outdated, you need something fresher." I was polite, but inside, I was fuming. Still, I let it slide. Family, right? The betrayal begins. One day, I came into the office and found Emily sitting in my chair. My employees were gathered around her as she talked about future plans for the company. I pulled her aside after and asked what the hell she was doing. She smiled sweetly and said, "Don't be so defensive. Mom and Dad think I should take on more of a leadership role here. You're too stressed all the time. I can handle the client relationships." That was the first time I realized, this wasn't a suggestion. My parents were orchestrating something. Sure enough, a week later, I was invited to family dinner. Except it wasn't dinner, it was an ambush. My parents sat me down and told me that for the good of the family, I needed to share ownership of the company with Emily. They argued that she had leadership qualities I lacked, that I was too much of a workaholic and would burn out. I tried to reason with them. I explained that Emily had contributed nothing to this company, that I had built it from scratch with blood and sweat. They didn't care. To them, family was family, and everything I built should be shared. I refused. That night, my mom cried. My dad shouted. Emily played the victim, claiming I never supported her dreams. It was a disaster. But I thought, fine. They'll get over it. I was wrong, the coup. Over the next year, the pressure never stopped. Emily started showing up more, sometimes with my parents, sometimes alone. She charmed clients, often taking credit for things she didn't do. My parents would publicly call her the co-founder. Slowly, she began convincing my employees that she was in charge too. Then came the final knife in the back. My dad hired a lawyer and pressured me to restructure the company. He wanted Emily formally added as a co-owner. I refused again, but the battle drained me. Some employees began siding with Emily. A few key clients shifted their trust to her. It was like watching my own creation being stolen from me in slow motion. And that's when I decided, if they want to betray me, fine. The plan. Revenge doesn't come overnight. It requires patience, precision, and above all, secrecy. I quietly began setting up a new company, a mirror image of my old one, but better. Smarter contracts, cleaner branding, updated systems. I opened it under a different name, with me as the sole owner. Only a handful of my most trusted employees knew the truth, and they agreed to come with me when the time was right. Meanwhile, I let Emily and my parents think they were winning. I gave her small roles, let her take more credit, even pretended to step back. To them, it looked like I was burning out and she was taking control. They gloated, smiled, acted like they'd finally saved me from myself. Behind the scenes, I was transferring key contracts to the new company. One by one, our biggest clients signed fresh agreements. They trusted me, not Emily. But I didn't announce it. I let her think the old company was thriving. For 6 months, I played this game. It was exhausting, keeping up the act. But every time I saw Emily sitting in my chair, every time my mom bragged about her brilliance, every time my dad told me to be grateful you don't have to work so hard anymore, I tightened the knot a little more. The reveal. The day finally came. It was a quarterly meeting, and my parents insisted on attending. Emily strutted into the room like she owned the place. She gave a presentation about our company's growth, numbers she didn't even understand, slides she hadn't created. My parents clapped like proud coaches. When she finished, I stood up. Calm. Collected. I thanked everyone for their hard work. Then I announced that effective immediately, I was stepping down from this company entirely. Gasps filled the room. Emily's smile grew wider than ever. My parents looked at each other, beaming. Then I dropped the bomb. As of today, all major contracts and assets have already been transferred to my new company, which I own outright. This entity will cease operations within 30 days, as it no longer has the revenue to sustain itself. The silence that followed was glorious. Emily stammered, What do you mean? That's impossible. I pulled out the signed agreements. One by one, I laid them on the table. Every major client, gone. Every key resource, gone. The employees who mattered most, gone. This, I said, is what happens when you try to steal from the person who built everything. You wanted control. Congratulations. You now control a sinking ship. My parents exploded. My mom screamed that I was tearing the family apart. My dad called me ungrateful. Emily, she just sat there, pale as a ghost, realizing her victory was ashes. And me? I walked out. When I first started the company, I poured my soul, sweat, and every last ounce of energy into it. It wasn't glamorous at first. I worked 16-hour days, ate cheap instant noodles, and rented a one-bedroom apartment with mold creeping on the ceiling. My parents thought I was wasting my time. My sister, Emily, used to mock me, saying I was just playing businessman. But after 2 years of constant grind, sleepless nights, and a handful of risky but smart decisions, my company finally started to gain traction. Investors noticed. Contracts started flowing in. By the third year, I was hiring employees, moving into a real office, and signing deals worth more than I had ever imagined. And suddenly, my family started treating me differently. My parents, who once called me irresponsible for not working a safe job, now boasted to their friends about their genius son. Emily, who once sneered at me for not joining the family's traditional business, suddenly wanted to be involved. At first, I didn't mind. I thought, well, they doubted me, but maybe now they see my worth. But things didn't stay that simple. It started small. My mother suggested Emily should help out with administrative tasks. My father hinted that Emily had a natural leadership instinct. Emily herself grew bold, making little comments like, "You're great at building things, but I'm better at managing people." I brushed it off. After all, it was still my company, my blood, sweat, and vision that built it. Then, during a family dinner, my parents dropped a bombshell. "We've been talking," my father said, his fork pausing midair. "And we think Emily should take on more of a leadership role in your company." I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. Leadership? She's barely been here 6 months. She doesn't even understand half of what we do. But the looks on their faces told me they weren't joking. My mother chimed in, "Your sister is smart, and she has a natural business mind. Besides, she's family. Don't you think it's time to share the responsibility?" The word share twisted in my head like poison. I had built this empire from nothing, and now they wanted me to hand it over to someone who hadn't lifted a finger during the hardest years. Emily smirked at me across the table, her lip